All right, there we go. I was just sitting here awkwardly waiting for all of you to join me. Here we go. Thanks, StreamYard. Welcome to week 3, season 5 of the Women of Fantasy Football podcast. The purpose of WOFF is to amplify the voices of women in the world of sports. And every year we set aside some time with the wonderfully talented ladies in our space to hear their stories, their experiences, how they navigate the world of sports and beyond. And we do it with an eye towards the future. We've arranged a partnership with Laura Oakman's Galvanize, an organization that puts the tools to women of all ages, preparing them for the world of sports media. To help Laura and Galvanize, we have a raffle series of jerseys each week, which you, I'm sure, know all about. And 100% of those commissions go towards the WOFF Galvanize Scholarship. This week's giveaways are a Sam Laporta Lions jersey and a signed Amon-Ra St. Brown Lions jersey. And we'll be announcing those winners, one in the middle and one at the end. So you'll need to stay tuned. Let's hit the music, Josh. I probably could introduce myself. I am your host, Kelly Singh. You can find me at Kelly in Phoenix. And this week, the second of our guests will be Stephanie Stradley, who covers the Houston, Texas with the Houston Chronicle. But our first guest this week is Stacy Perez from Fantasy and Frames and Club Fantasy FFL. Stacy, welcome.
Kelly, thank you. My Queen's Classic neighbor. I'm so happy to get to chat with you tonight.
Me too. I really look forward to these every single year because not only do we get to hear these amazing stories of, women out there in the space, how they're navigating, but we also get to spend time with people we actually like. So
yes. That's a bonus.
It's a bonus for sure. Oh my gosh. I really want to start out with this because it sounds very superhero-like. Fill in the blank. By day, you're a lawyer. By night, you're...
Let's see. By night, fantasy football content / drafter girl. I don't know. By night, fantasy football nerd.
I think we're all nerds.
100%.
But yeah, all kinds of people already tuning in. Tons of hellos. Hello, friends. Love it. Stacey, we did a panel last year together, the Women of Fantasy Football panel. And I think I remember your origin story, maybe similar to mine. So why don't you tell everybody how long you've been playing fantasy football? How did that start for you?
So I've been playing fantasy since I was 12 years old. My dad got me into it. And so this was like, Kelly, not to like betray my age, but this was back in the days of like you having to look at a magazine and figure out the players and then, call in your lineups to the commissioner every week and then look in the newspaper. For the kids that don't know what newspapers are, you can just Google them. But find like the box score to like figure out, so forever ago. And so we only played 1 year together, but it did spark my passion for the Green Bay Packers because our first pick ever was Brett Favre. So that, again, probably tells you how long ago that was. But yeah, and then, picked it up again in high school and in college and, started playing with some friends. And, before I knew it, here I am now and, just kind of really getting into the big tournaments after the last few years. And it's just been quite the journey, but it feels like it's kind of always been a part of my life.
Yeah, I can relate so much. Same, almost to the T. I think I might have been like 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly. I was in 4th grade. So however old you are in 4th grade.
But
I remember all of it the same, like definitely checking all the box scores, writing it down. My dad was the team statistician, so he was
Nice.
getting all of that. But such good memories for us to even
Yeah.
pass down to other listeners. And
Mhm.
if my own children, they are like, why are you so obsessed? And I have to share the story. But you mentioned tournaments, bigger tournaments. Why don't you tell us, because I know you're doing some traveling, tell
Yes.
us about traveling for tournaments.
Oh my gosh. So this all started in 2019. I went to my very first tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. And my cousin Farrell is in charge of that. He's the commissioner there. And he'd been trying for years to kind of get me to go. And I just thought, that's not for me. That's so expensive. Like I just play with friends for fun. But just kind of that year, I just kind of started saying yes to every opportunity that kind of came up. It was just kind of like one of those things. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll go. And I went and I kind of met my people. I walked into a huge ballroom full of, hundreds of people that love the exact same thing that I do, with fantasy football, just, your friends, if they're more casual players, things pop up in life and they don't always, want to play one year from the next or something like that. But man, like everybody here was just so into it, just like I was. And I was like, this is my group. This is my tribe. And ever since then, I have just been playing there every year. I leave Friday to go up for that draft. Started playing in Vegas with the FFPC as well a couple years ago. And I'll be going there in a couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, now and then of course, all the online, tournaments that we have available, but yeah, it's just been, I can't even imagine not doing it now. And it's only been like 4 years for me.
I took my first travel tournament actually last year, was to the Circus Series, and we were talking before the show
Yes.
how you wish that these things happened on the same weekends because
No,
you can't attend with us because the
I know.
conflict.
I know. I've been so bummed because I really wanted to get out to Circa. But it just happens it's Thursday, it's tomorrow. And, then
Yep.
I've got to leave Friday to be in Kentucky. So it never works out with timing for me. So man, if they ever do think about moving it, I would love for that to happen.
It's not too early to start planning for next year.
Mm,
I will put
exactly.
a bug in their ear and be like, "Hey, can we make this the same weekend?"
Yes. Or, I mean, I'm sure they have flights that go from Vegas to Kentucky that I could just hop on. So maybe I need to put some more planning into my trips.
I was thinking about that. I mean, Vegas to Phoenix is much different than Vegas
Yeah.
to Louisville, but
Right.
I'm heading home for Def Leppard, so it can be
Nice.
done, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 2024. We can make anything happen.
Anything can happen.
Yes.
Okay, I saw your co-host in
Yeah.
here, Gator J. He's
I see
giving
him
you
too.
a little shout
Gator.
out. So speaking of,
Yeah.
you have been hosting a best
Mhm.
ball show with Gator
Yes.
J, our sister brand, Club Fantasy,
Yeah.
FFL. It has been going all off season.
Mhm.
So, two questions. One, how's that been? And two, do you have any takeaways now that we're hitting like peak draft season?
So it's been so much fun. This was something that I kind of started thinking about doing last season. And, during the, actually in season time was really thinking about, okay, next year during the off season, I want to do like a whole, just draft show, just drafting, because these things come out, these tournaments come out in April and in May. And I mean, I was drafting Super Bowl Sunday this year. So you can literally draft all year round.
Mhm.
And I know there are more people out there that are degenerates just like me and want to get out there and draft from, April on into August and September. So why not do that? And so I have had the best time hosting that with Gator and just, kind of getting in, doing drafts with people in the chat, doing different kinds of best ball drafts because
Mhm.
there's Underdog, there's DraftKings, but there are so many more platforms that do best ball as well. So that was kind of a focus of ours too, is that we wanted to get, all the different platforms that are out there, out to people, do drafts on those and, just kind of, show everybody, hey, look, there's so many different ways that you can play fantasy.
So I just took a drink right as you were ending.
Oh, sorry. I've got to
I'm
time that
also
better next time.
not drinking alcohol at 4 Pacific time. It happens to be seltzer, everyone who may be concerned about my health.
5 o'clock somewhere, Kelly.
Oh, as you've been doing these mock drafts,
Mm-hmm.
have you picked up on any trends? What are some of your biggest takeaways that you might want to share with people?
Yeah. So I want to say, let's see, probably some of the biggest trends that I've been seeing lately, you know, you have your ADP risers, you have your ADP fallers, those guys are going to come and go as news happens and news drops and, injuries start, cropping up now that we actually have football. But, it's kind of neat to see where the rookies are going and where they're kind of trending and who's going to be expensive and who's not. And your boy Marvin Harrison Jr. is super expensive and he always has been. But it's neat to see those guys kind of falling because everybody's, and including me, love Lad McConkey, right? But man, when poor Justin Herbert hurt his foot, he has gone down a little bit. So that's been an issue, after a couple, really great, film little catches on that. I can't talk, from Xavier Worthy, at camp, his stock has been rising. Poor Marshawn Lloyd had the hamstring injury, so you can almost get him for free now, whereas he was going a lot higher. So I always like looking to see where all the rookies are going to go and, who do we think is going to be successful in the NFL and just the kind of the surprising ones, that you're not really like looking out for, right off the bat, starting at the draft. That's always fun for me is just a kind of that, guessing game that you play all season.
Yeah. It's good to hear those insights because I myself have also been wondering, Josh, I'm going off script. With Justin Herbert having this
Mhm.
injury, have you seen in mock drafts the running back room rising in ADP to pick up the slack there?
Mhm. A little bit, not as much as you might necessarily think given that injury. And then, of course, there was some, I think it maybe was like a week ago or maybe 2 weeks at this point, some chatter about maybe Kamani Vidal doesn't even make the team. And then so he was somebody that was going really high. And then all of a sudden you saw him dropping.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of stabilized a little bit now that they've had a few games under their belt. But, that with they're not as going as high as I thought. And especially too, with knowing how much of a, potential for that being like a run first offense.
Yeah.
That's a big surprise too. And I think that might just have to do with the players on that team, the running backs there with Gus Edwards and, the injury issues with J.K. Dobbins and, all that. So maybe for a different room, it might have skyrocketed a little bit more, but yeah, it haven't really moved as much as I would think.
That's okay. I'm on the bus, so everyone else can just do whatever else they want to do. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Let's take a question from the
Ooh,
audience, Josh.
yeah.
We have a question from Ann Dunn.
Yes.
Stacy, how many managed leagues are you in so far, and how do you manage all the waivers and lineups each week?
Oh, and oh gosh. So I have 17 this year. If I counted them up correctly, I've got
Right.
17. Um, I'm trying to convince one of my home leagues to switch to a best ball format instead of manage. We'll see how much luck I have with that. 17 right now, and then spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are key in keeping track of what's going on. And then also with a majority of my teams, the high stakes teams, I draft with a partner. And so his name is Jim Bednar. He's out in your neck of the woods over there in California. But he and I try to tag team that and help with waivers and, make sure that, not one person's getting stuck doing every single thing. So that's really helpful. So, if you're going to have a pretty big load of teams to kind of manage, it's really nice to have somebody there that you can count on, to help out with all that.
For sure. That's definitely a plus, having a co-manager. And that's one reason why I like doing pros with Joe's, because there's a co-manager there.
Yes.
And last year, my buddy Rick K Warriors. I am so bad with people's Twitter handles, but it's Warriors with a bunch of numbers. Rick, you know I love you. We were like text buddies, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Boop, 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 boop,
Yeah.
boop.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Oh yeah. Like we talk every day probably, and about we've got a draft that we're doing tomorrow with Kevin Tompkins and Fantasy Pros. And we have been talking all week about strategy and, we know our draft position and, what are we going to do if this happens, So, it's really nice when you've got that many teams to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And, at least even for me to bring in a different perspective, maybe they're onto some players that I can't stand or, vice versa, so it's been really great. We teamed up a couple years ago and we met at the Kentucky drafts.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, speaking of co-management, I'm going to take this platform opportunity. If you have not donated to Pros with Joes or you want to donate to additional Pros with Joes, you can have a chance to co-manage with me. It's pinned at the top of my profile and proceeds go to We Got This, an amazing cancer foundation helping to brighten the days of patients and caregivers.
Nice.
So $1, one entry. Go do it. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Shameless plug.
Not shameless at all.
Okay, let's talk more about you.
Yeah.
Queen's Classic. You mentioned we were a draft side buddies.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed drafting next to you.
Thank you.
It didn't feel like competitive. It felt like, what do you think about this? Like,
Yeah.
because we weren't really in a position on the board to snipe from each other. So that was really helpful. I saw that you did a recap on Fantasy and Frames, and I'm dying to know. I have it bookmarked. Just be brutally honest. How did my bully tight end strategy fare among the experts?
So here's what I think, because, in the Queen's Classic, we can trade, right? So you've got what, four or five?
Yeah,
tight ends?
4 was the
Okay.
max. I ended up having to drop the last pick, Hayden Hurst. And I was like, fine, I don't care. Put
That's
whoever.
Okay. That's okay. So I think you put yourself in a really good position to kind of fleece the rest of us in the league when we are dying for tight ends and are going to have to come like begging to you to like take whatever you want from us. We just need a tight end.
It's hilarious.
I told Josh I was going to try to convince you to trade with me tonight.
Convince me. Man, I
don't think I have any Cardinals though, so I might be out of luck.
It is starting to spread that in leagues with so many flex that I'm going to take all the tight ends. So we have our fantasy league for Club Fantasy, and it has all flex spots.
Ooh.
And everybody took tight ends in the first within the first 2 rounds, and so I could not.
They boxed you out. They knew your strategy.
They used my strategy against me because last year I kicked their asses, and so it was not going to happen this year, obviously.
You're just going to have to beat them another way.
I am. I drafted the first. So there's one super flex spot. So you could choose to play a quarterback or not.
Okay.
And I started the QB run in the 3rd round.
Yes.
I'm like, take that.
Take it. You're gonna win. Don't let them, think they can come beat you using your strategy against you. No way.
But how about your team? How do you think you came out of Queen's Classic? Do you love it?
Yeah, I actually really do. I went really hard receiver. I think my first 5 picks were receiver. I should pull it up. I can.
You
take a look at it.
did, yeah.
But that is typical of me. And like you said, hey, you give me a flex spot, like I'm going to use it. So, we have all those flex spots there that we can put players in, and it's a PPR format. So, give me all the receivers. Like I will take the value there. And I really liked the guys I got. Give me 2 seconds. I can kind of pull
of course.
Quick.
I mean, it's the similar strategy as mine. Tight ends are being used as receivers. We want all those points. So
I know. And Hema was really giving me a run for my money over there because she was doing the same thing. And I think both of us were kind of like, okay, who's going to crack first? And take like a different player than a receiver. But I think we both ended up with like really great receiving rooms.
Mhm.
So I had the fifth pick, I think. Yeah, I think I had the fifth pick in that, and I took St. Brown first. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's love him, my fave. And then I went Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, and then T. Higgins, um, who I just was like the value in that room because it's 16 team or a 16 man roster, but it's also
Mhm.
14 team league.
14
It's not like
teams.
a 12 team or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
even though I got him in the fifth, that's still a little bit, equivalent to like what, like the seventh round or something,
Yeah.
12 team. So him still being there, I couldn't pass that up. So had to do it. But I'm kind of digging my team here. There's some things I'm gonna have to play around with and tinker with, but I'm pretty happy with how it ended up. It's been forever since I drafted in a 14 team league. So I
Yeah.
wasn't sure how that was gonna go.
It was interesting, even last year, the inaugural year, because as what you said, there are 14 teams. Things
Mhm.
are happening sooner than you would imagine.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks, especially, going earlier than you would imagine because you just can't miss out
Right.
on an elite quarterback.
No.
I mean,
No.
it depends on your overall strategy, but if you're hurting already, if you're going like mid on everybody else, then you
Mhm.
better be getting a good quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of waited too for a little bit and then ended up I was lucky that nobody sniped Jared Goff for me to go with St. Brown.
Match, yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to snag him. I don't have my draft board up, but I can't remember exactly where I got him, but it was kind of late, I think, at that point.
Yeah, because you had done 5 receivers
Yeah.
already, and I think QBs already went prior to the 5th round. So
Yes.
it's interesting in that way, also infuriating in that way, but it's such a fun tournament.
Yeah.
Um, Josh, let's take another question from Tootsie Pop in the
Ooh.
chat. Hey, favorite
Ooh.
ladies. Hey.
Yes.
Stacy, what's next on your
Ooh.
bucket list?
Oh gosh. So I don't know if this is specific to football or I can just make it general. So I'm just gonna make it general.
General.
Um, so when I go to Vegas, this year I'm going out a day early and I always like to do little day trips when I'm out there because I live in Florida. So I don't get out to that side of the country very often, except for usually like when I, go out for the Vegas tournaments. And so I like to do kind of naturey stuff because I am a terrible gambler. And I'm taking a day trip out to the Grand Canyon. So that's probably the biggest thing on my bucket list right now that I actually have on paper planned, ready to go.
That's gonna be fun. The Grand
I'm
Canyon's a
super
beautiful
excited.
place.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be a little warm, but not
A little bit.
terrible because you're north.
Yeah, that's why I was looking at the temperatures this week, and I think it dips into the 90s. It gives a little bit of a break.
A little bit of a break. I agree. I need that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk more about you being featured. You were featured in Peter Fun's book, Inside Fantasy
Yes.
Football. How did that come about?
Oh my gosh. So I think I have Alicia Hunt to thank for that. She reached out to me and said, "Hey, I gave these people your information. You're going to be hearing from them. I hope that's okay." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" Like with my day job, I'm used to having my information out there for people, so not a big deal for me. And they reached out in April, and Peter and I talked for like an hour and a half. We had the best conversation just about football, fantasy football, life, that kind of stuff. And it was kind of like I can't believe somebody wants to talk to me about like a book for fantasy football. That's wild. I really wasn't sure. Like I kind of forgotten about it a little bit because it had been April's a while away or a while ago, and then I got an email from one of his assistants saying, "Hey, the book's coming out in August. Here's the link to it. You can find it on Amazon, And so the minute that it came out, like I ordered it immediately and got a little copy right here. And just, I mean, like, my gosh, you've got, some like seriously amazing women in that book. And I just am like so honored to be one of the ones that he included.
That is so cool because I
Yeah.
was researching questions to throw in here and I was looking for just some off the wall ones just tonight. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I saw my face.
You're in there twice. You are, because on the next page is the picture of us from the women's panel at the expo last year. And so it's the one where we're all up on stage together. So you're on both pages.
Okay, now I have to buy the book just because my face is in
Exactly.
it.
Page 201.
Page 201 is going to be forever bookmarked.
Yes.
I loved seeing that so much. That was hilarious. Oh gosh. Okay. We have another question from
Yeah.
the audience, Carrington Hobbs.
Ooh.
Stacy, I
Oh.
saw you tweeted about a
Mhm.
vampire league. Not sure what that is. Would you care to explain?
Yes. So, with our draft show that we do at Fantasy and Frames on Thursdays, we're doing a listener league, and next week we're doing the draft, and we're doing it vampire league style. Our draft show is kind of like the best ball show where we want to showcase different formats, of drafting. So it's not just best ball, but redraft. The only thing we don't really do is dynasty because it's just for the off season. But we've done all kinds of things there, and so a few of us were talking, and we're like, you know what? We've never done a vampire league before. That might be kind of fun. And we couldn't find any to do like during a draft, during like a show. So we thought, I did some research, found an article about how to put one together yourself. And so I'm gonna be commissioning that. So just, like I wanted to give myself a little bit more work during the season. And so what the Vampire League is, Carrington, is basically it's like a smaller, it's not like a huge league. So we're only gonna do 10. And this is why. One team plays the vampire, and that's going to be our Fantasy and Frames group, meaning they don't actually draft. So they're going to wait until the draft's over and then put their team together using free agents and the waiver wire. And every head-to-head matchup during the season, if the vampire team beats your team, we get to steal any player that we want from your squad and put them on our squad. And so it's just kind of something really fun to do. I heard about it years ago, and always kind of in the back of my mind, like this might be something fun to participate in. And so yeah, so I posted that today. If you're interested in playing, just reply to that tweet with your most creative vampire themed team name. And Kelly, you might like our team name because it's the McBride of Dacula.
Yay! Yes.
The cheesier the better, guys. So
The McBride of Dracula. I love
yes.
it. Love it, love it, love it. Let's get one more question in from the audience. Mr. Scampers
Ooh.
is asking, who are some mid to late round must drafts for you this
Mhm.
season? Guys, you're perfectly fine paying at least a round up for.
Ooh. Let's see. I've
Or
been
maybe
really
let's take that
yeah.
in 2 questions
Ooh, yeah.
because maybe there's a mid to late round must have,
Mhm.
but you don't necessarily want to pay up for them. And then somebody that you are fine paying up for.
Yeah, so I think somebody that I'm fine paying up for now, um, if you'd asked me earlier in the season, I probably would have said Sam Laporta. I've been kind of like tapering off on that right now just because I've got so much Laporta. But somebody that I really kind of don't like leaving drafts with, and maybe I can just put it like a position, is like one of those elite tight ends. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to leave a draft without having an elite tight end. I want to make sure it's one of those top guys, whether it's Kelce, Laporta, your boy Mark Andrews,
Mhm.
or Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride. I want one of those guys on my team. I don't want to have to wait and push that at all. So I'm fine paying a little bit early, paying a little bit more for one of those guys in that position. Some of the late round must drafts for me. Gosh, he's getting steamed up the boards right now so much. So I'm hesitant to put him out there just to, like make it go up even higher. But Dontavian Wicks, I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here. Love Dontavian Wicks, love Romeo Dobbs. I don't think people realize that,
Mhm.
Romeo Dobbs led the team in receiving yards last year.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that Dobbs one
yeah,
100%.
love it. So, I love going to get Jaden Reed. He is pretty expensive. Christian Watson, we really don't know how his hamstrings are yet. But the other two guys, especially in best ball formats, love taking Dobbs and Wicks. And actually, the draft that Gator and I did on Tuesday, they both went in the 9th round. And that was at Best Ball Mania. So
I think that's great. I'll throw in another homer pick. Michael Wilson also trending upwards. Hate giving it out, but you love to see it still.
Yeah, I tried to get him too because I took Kyler in that draft, and I was like, I'll just get Michael Wilson later. No, that did not work out the way I wanted.
He's making the rounds. I love that. I definitely have had Romeo Dobbs in several mentions and articles. But people they're just jumping on that train.
Go Pack, go.
Stacey, we are going to do our giveaway. But before we do that, why don't you tell people where they can find you? Where do you want them to look?
So you can find me on Twitter, and most of my social media is at Stacy_Perez83. Try to keep it all the same because God knows I'm old enough. I'm going to forget my logins at some point. So it's all the same. You can find me over on Fantasy and Frames on Thursdays. We do the draft show for a couple more weeks, and then going to be moving over to doing waivers on Tuesday. And I got some other things going on during the in season that haven't quite been announced just yet, but just give me a follow on the Twitter machine over here, and you'll find out about them pretty soon.
All right. I hope you guys took notes. Josh, why don't you join us and spin that magic wheel so Stacy can yell out our winner? Caveat, everybody, Stacy loves Sam Laporta. We did not have a rule that guests cannot buy raffle tickets. They were legally and ethically purchased should she call her own name. If she doesn't, go ahead, give your offer.
Well, also, Kelly, I was going to tell you, I jumped in on that before I knew that was the giveaway for tonight. And when I saw that, I was like, oh no. But I was like, well, that's okay. So free legal advice if you're in the state of Florida. If you win the Laporta jersey, I'll swap with you.
Need a divorce? She's got you.
Come on over. I can help you. If you're in jail, probably can't help you there. But otherwise, I'm your girl.
All right. Sorry about that. I was having a little hang-ups backstage. Yeah, cool. Stacy, thank you so much for joining us. I always like to kind of start and preface with that.
Thanks for having me.
As mentioned, we are giving away this lovely signed Sam Laporta jersey. This week, we were able to raise, where's my final number, between the two jerseys, an additional $675 for our Galvin Scholarship Fund for a 3-week total of $2,095.
Good job, everyone.
Super excited about that. And some lucky winner here is going to get this signed Sam Laporta jersey. Who's it going to be?
See.
It's going to be you, Stacy? Is it going to be you?
No.
Oh.
So close. Wendy. Yay.
Yay,
I love Wendy. Oh, Wendy, you and
I. Congratulations, Wendy.
Reminder for everybody: do not go anywhere because we do have Amon-Ra St. Brown to give away still at the end of the show, and our next guest, Stephanie Stradley from the Houston Chronicle, is joining us. Right.
I'm gonna pop out here shortly, and we can switcheroo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. This was so good, so fun. I knew a bunch of this stuff about you already, but I love that we got to share this with everybody else.
Me too. Kelly, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a fun time tonight just to come hang out with you and Josh and, just chat.
Just chatting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you on the interwebs.
Yes, absolutely. And if you guys are in Vegas the week of Labor Day, please come say hi and hang out, and I'll be there all week. So I'll be there all week.
Hit her up.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. As promised, we have a second guest, Stephanie Stradley. Stephanie, do you prefer Steph?
Everybody calls me Steph. They're friends. So y'all are either friends or future friends.
We are friends for sure. Steph, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us this year.
I'm so excited to be a part of this. I have to tell you, when I first started getting involved with online stuff with football, I didn't know many women who dug things as much as I did. Now I know a bazillion of them, and I keep meeting them, and it's just really, it just feels good, where everybody feels welcome to be a part of football. And I love just being part of the football community, and I am not a fantasy football expert. Like I know enough about fantasy football to know that you guys like good information so that you
Yes.
can win. So I really appreciate the fantasy football community, because in the early days of the Texans, when I first started having interest in them, it was really hard to find good information, because some sources of information just focused on the legacy teams or the popular teams or the teams that were doing well, and the Texans for a while were not doing well. But the fantasy football community and the analytics community follow all the teams, because
Yep.
there's value even in struggling football. And so that's how I got to know different people in y'all's communities. And I have to say, I probably have my most followers because I put people on Arian Foster early, and they rejoiced.
We're all rejoiced. I love hearing you speak. Are you born and raised in Texas?
No. I've lived here. See, like, to you, maybe I sound Texan. To other people, like, where are you from? I've lived here since high school, so that's most of my life. And I actually, behind the computer, have a certificate from Governor Ann Richards designating that I am a Texan. Like, wait, I'm gonna just show you.
Yes.
Like, this is my maiden name. I was about to marry a multi-generational Houstonian, which those are rare. And I had a problem with the question, where are you from? Because my dad was in the Air Force and we moved all the time. And now I very confidently can say I'm a Houstonian, not by birth, but by choice. And one of the slogans for the Texans these days is H-Town made. And I am definitely H-Town made. Like, I owe a lot of my life to Houston and to Texas. And I really just enjoy just watching a team be built from scratch. And 2024 is a very fun year to be wanting to watch the Texans.
There's a lot of similarities between us here in Phoenix. The Cardinals 2024 is a very exciting year to be a Cardinals fan. I'm born and raised in Phoenix, which is rare. So like your partner. And then also we don't think there's any accent in Arizona. So it's really fun to hear other people talk. But a lot of times people will be like, are you from the Midwest? I'm like, nope, I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of transplants to the South, because,
Yes,
if we're being
yes.
real honest about it, yes, the heat is bad, but you don't have to shovel it. And my dad was stationed in Alaska, and I really love Alaska. A lot of my heart's in Alaska, but I can't. That cold hurts.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't deal with. I like visiting in the summer. I used to have clients in Alaska, and they're like, wow, you just have so many legal issues in the summertime.
Oh boy.
I didn't want a
boy.
Texan driving in snow. That doesn't go well.
Oh goodness. Well, speaking of traveling, you mentioned that you traveled a lot before you got to high school with your father being in the military. So what were some of your favorite places that you visited as a kid?
Oh, geez. I mean, I enjoyed a lot of it. And, a lot of it to me kind of is the reason why I live here is, I mostly lived in small towns, so I didn't really know what it was like to live in a big city. Although I lived outside of DC for a while when the Washington team was really good. So when I moved to Houston, I legitimately did not care for the Cowboys. And I moved to Houston in the middle of Love You Blue and Earl Campbell, and just a really fun time to be a part of Houston and knowing what it feels like to live in the city where your team is succeeding. Like, I tasted that a little bit with the Redskins, the Washington football team. But here was different. it's interesting. We have a lot of transplants, so a lot of people have always had like another team that's in their heart from where they were from. But then it's kind of nice to have the professional teams where it doesn't matter where you went to college, it doesn't matter where you grew up. We collect really great athletes here and players and GMs and football people and basketball people. So, and it's a easy place to live in because you can find your people in Houston because we're so big. Like it can take longer to drive across Houston than it can to get through to other cities in the Northeast. So like we're big and we're a lot of things. And so the things that I love growing up, like I lived on the beach for a while and know about hurricanes. But I'm close to the beach, Galveston's right there. And we have 2 airports to take you any place else you want to be, whether it's the mountains and some cooler air, which I'd like to do sometime soon. And, or, going to other beaches. Like I love Galveston. I spent we went through 2 hurricanes this summer, or a hurricane and a derecho, which had big
What is
impacts.
that?
That is a good question because I did not know before my power went out for over a week, and Wi-Fi and everything. So it's been a very disruptive summer for a lot of people. But a derecho, as I understand it, I'm going to probably botch it, is we get lots of very serious storms in the Gulf Coast because of just the way that the weather is. And a lot of it is it'll be hot in the morning and sunny, and then in the afternoon we get a big storm. Well, this particular time there was a storm that came from the west. It was a very violent storm. We didn't have very much notice, but a derecho is like having like a big tornado but it's not spinning winds, it's very directed winds. And so It was big enough that it knocked down, energy towers. There's still plenty of signs around town that were either knocked over for the derecho or through Hurricane Beryl.
Wow.
I was out of power for about 2 weeks, but at least I had options. It was really hard on a lot of different people. And one of the things that we're doing for this summer is everybody wants everybody to handle their business. So individuals have to be prepared for storms. And we want CenterPoint, our electrical company that runs things, to handle their business. And by all accounts, everybody's just trying. So we are very due for some really fun sports in the fall. And I'm like really like a lot of the stuff that I do with my work is like solving problems. But the best way to solve a problem is just to not have the problem in the first place. And part of that is people getting along, working together for a common cause. And Houston is the home of NASA, and we put men on the moon.
Yes.
With less computing power than is in my phone. So if we can do that, maybe a Super Bowl is in the offing to match maybe the Astros going back to the World Series, or because for me, I like to ride the fun waves of sports because everybody's going through something, whether it's a storm or something else. And the best part of sports is always bringing people together and having a nice vibe and having something where you can watch hard work pay off. And there's some sports teams that are very intriguing in town or relevant. Like all you really can hope for is relevant football and people working together in an environment where people legitimately feel like something cool could happen.
For sure. Yeah. Well, you mentioned several different types of sports. Where did your love of sports originate?
I think it's just like with most people, it was just growing up that way. My grandmother was a big Vikings fan. My mom was a big Vikings fan. I was born in Wisconsin, so I didn't know that you couldn't be a Packer fan and a Viking fan, because when you're a kid, you just like who you like, which there's something to that. And then we moved around, so I kind of followed different sports. Like we lived in Alaska, so that's how I got into hockey. I wish we had a hockey team in Houston because it's really hard to really get into it unless you hear the names and see, have reasons to watch. And I liked baseball growing up, and moving to Houston when I did, I got to see a lot of the best of Houston sports. Like I was, I didn't go to the Love You Blue era games, but you felt it as a city. I went to at least one of the celebrations for the Rockets playoffs. I actually got married in the middle of the first Rockets championship. So I was in Maui, and it was a good time. I got to tell you, like, there's a lot of ways to celebrate a championship, and getting married to the coolest guy ever, win. So like, and then, I was at game 5 of the Astros first championship, that was the big Dodgers Astros slugfest at home before they won it on the road. And then their most recent championship was on a Saturday night, and I wasn't planning on going. And then my friends and I rationalized that we could get tickets because we were already down there. And we went and we sang "We Are the Champion" and drank trunk liquor. So you have to prepare for fall sports because, you want to really be able to enjoy it and handle your business so that you can enjoy the fun when there's fun to be had.
Do you have a favorite sport though?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't have to pick a favorite. Like love is love. Love is love. Like I do have a closer relationship with football just because that was the sport that I watched probably the most of growing up, and I have the closest history with, and I've just seen a lot of it in person and know a lot of football people, and a lot of it is very intuitive to me. Like I like the way it feels. I like the strategy of it. I like it on all different levels. And it's hard. Like if you live in Texas, it's really fun to love high quality football because it's all around you and it's celebrated. And the lessons that you learn from high quality football, you can see it in other areas, like not just sports. You can see it in how people do business with each other and how people are sporting to each other, and it's beautiful when you see it. I have to tell you 2 different things I just recently went to. Like this is why my 2024 is amazing. Andre Johnson, first Texan in the Hall of Fame. I had never been to Canton before. It was going to be hard to get away, but I wasn't going to do it until Andre was in. So I went, and it was an incredible, uplifting experience seeing so many different Houstonians happy at the same time. Like you can't lose when Andre Johnson is inducted in the Hall of Fame. Like that was so full of win. And I hope we continue to celebrate that all year round because it was really, really fun. And then recently, Gary Kubiak was named Touchdowner of the Year from the Touchdown Club of Houston, which is a really fantastic organization that supports football at all levels and celebrates the best of football and, gets scholarships for deserving kids, and it puts the spotlight on them. And he gave such an incredible speech. Like I'd seen him, like most football coaches, like my observation is the best football coaches share characteristics with the best trial lawyers, where they're very real, they're very heartfelt, and you feel what they're saying, and it makes sense to you. And anyway, back in the day when the media was very early, I used to record things that were happening at the Texans because that was before in-house media. It was before kind of NFL media everywhere. And so I used to put like an actual camera before camera phones, and just record stuff, like very poor quality recordings, but it was better than nothing. And actually, I wish I could find more of my recordings, to be honest. Well, for this, I knew one of my friends had to leave early, and I knew that there were a lot of people that would have liked to have been there that are big fans of the way he coaches and has meaning to those people because he's very Houston, like he's a very Houston guy, and he wanted the Texans to succeed so much and still does. And so I pinned the speech at the top of my Twitter, and I encourage all you, if you're a hardcore football lover, please watch that speech because it's really uplifting. Like, here's one of the people who's one of the best in his sport, sharing things with all these, some of the best high school students in players in the Houston area who are going to different schools and kind of telling him about his journey that, started off in high school in Houston, ended up going to A&M, and then just his journey with the pros. It was amazing. So we're going into the season in a very uplifting way. And then, oh, by the way, the Houston Texans are really fun to watch.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. We're getting some questions from the audience, but
Sure.
before we jump into those, I want to kind of lean into one of them. What made you pursue a law degree? I had no idea about this about you until we started researching questions. What made you pursue a law degree?
Well, some people know what they want to do when they grow up right away. Like my dentist, which I need a dentist, big teeth. My dentist knew he wanted to be a dentist in high school. And to me, that blows my mind because there were lots of things I was interested in high school. I didn't know if any of them you could make money on. And actually on my high school ring, it says, I have like a little thing on there that says artist. And then I'm like, how can I make money being an artist? Until eventually I figured out that if you love the art and everything, and even if you don't get paid to do a particular type of art, that's still art. Kind of the Vonnegut phrase where everybody should make art, even if it's not good, like the attempt. Mm-hmm. So you can put the art in the way you do legal work. You can put it in your writing, in the way that you interact with different things, and like look for it in other people. Like I like your background. I appreciate that you put effort in it. This is just my office, but there is art there. We have Racer X, and he's driving through the rain, and look, he's happy. He's unconcerned driving through the rain because he's good at it, and it's okay. Like, yeah, you're gonna have rain, but like, look at Racer X. He is unbothered. I love it. I can't say I'm always unbothered, but neither was Racer X. Sometimes he was bothered. So for some of your audience, look up Racer X.
Look it up. Look it up. If you don't have any grays yet, you got to look it up.
A little bit.
Well,
but the lawyer part was, I'm really, that actually is the way that I figured out that I could help the most people. Like I like to help people, and with my skill sets, I read really fast. I write really fast. I can digest a lot of information. And lawyers sometimes have outsized effects on other people, either in good or bad. So I really try to use what powers I have in good in a whole bunch of different ways. And hello, people that I have helped with legal issues over the years, both paid and unpaid. If everybody contributes the things that they know how to do, it makes society better. So I really believe in that. And for some people, I'm the only lawyer that they've ever known. When I grew up, I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't really have any role models with that. It's like, Sandra Day O'Connor is on the Supreme Court. Okay. Or Barbara Jordan. Barbara Jordan, as a Houstonian, was very important to me because she was one of the few lawyers I knew about. I didn't know her personally.
Sure.
And she was really effective in what she was doing, and she had a good heart with it, and you could see that. And I'm like, I don't know any people like that, but I find that very admirable. And at the time, like when I went to law school, there were women who were professors, but I didn't have any women professors. So like me coming out of law school, I did work with women, but I didn't really like, some of my best mentors were men, and I very much appreciate them helping out and kind of figuring it out, because it wasn't easy. Like I started working for big companies when I was straight out of school, and it's kind of weird being a 24-year-old advising people with their legal stuff. Like, so it was interesting, but I loved it. Like I loved working for companies.
Yeah.
you could go to where you could be the most helpful, and some people got very specialized, but for me, I just like going where the action is and what's fun and what's interesting and what will have the most outsized impact, whether it's making money or helping people in different ways. And sometimes I kind of wish the kind of lawyering that I have done and how a lot of my friends have done was more reflected in the media, because sometimes the things that get outsized views are the things that went bad. Bad news is news. Like
Yeah.
people getting along and putting good deals together and making money with each other and creating cool things and empowering our country. That's not news. That's just every day, So anyway, that's just a little, like my dad used to introduce me in his older years as, this is my daughter Stephanie. Be careful, she's a lawyer. And I'm like, no, I'm not one of those be careful lawyers. I'm trying to be helpful.
I love that.
You
No,
know?
it's obvious that you're trying to be helpful.
Well, no, it's not obvious because
Well, in your speech here, it's obvious to us now. Maybe not stranger on the street, but to us.
But that's the thing, in the modern world, we're all talking to each other all at once. And some of us know each other well. Some of us don't know each other at all. And actually, one of the things that kind of resonated with me in this training camp is all the commentary about how the team wants to know each other more as people.
Oh, yeah.
So that it's easy to be brothers and be honest and loving with each other. And there's a lot of insight with that, because it is easier to be honest and caring, or people know where your heart is and what you're capable of doing if they see what you've been doing, if they know that you have their back. And that's hard to do with like a whole community of fans, for example, or a whole city or a whole state. But like my point of view, and I put this on my Twitter not that long ago, is, I want all Texans to be happy and thrive and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We don't all have the same view of what does that, but, can we figure that out? Could we rub some Willie Nelson on it, or can we buff it up with some Earl Campbell? I mean, that the best in each of us is pretty much undefeated.
For sure. I mean, that's truly inspiring. I love hearing this because you're right. People don't always think the best in lawyers. Our first guest is also a lawyer, Stacy Perez, and she put a question in the chat asking, what are some tips for balancing your legal and sports careers? She's asking for herself, not a friend.
Yeah, I am probably not the best person to talk about balance, because I have part of it is just the nature of my career overall. Like I didn't, like, this was not a career. Like I'm probably more what would be considered nowadays as a sports personality. Like I was just somebody who's a Texan fan, and I was trying to get information. And then I got involved with the official Texans message board. And that back then, that was the only place you could get information beyond what was in the newspapers. And, back in the old days, like during training camp, I would get both papers, the Post and the Chronicle, but now we only have the Chronicle. And so, I did that stuff, and I went to events, and I got to know people as people, not like as a media thing, just knowing people as people. And we all wanted the same things. Like we want the Texans to win because our history was stolen from us by people, like our history is not our own. So how do we create, like, the idea of the Texans is, if you're going to name something Texan and you're going to be football, you want it to be the best. The best. It's not named after a mascot. It's named after us.
Yeah.
And we are all different people. So how do you make the best football? And that's hard to do from scratch. Like you have a bunch of legacy franchises who have certain things that are advantages to them. Okay, so how can you leverage all the power of Houston to win? And so that has been a couple of decades of thinking for me. And part of it was just, I want to know more about the guys on the field as human beings. Because one of the things when I first started writing as a contributor with the Chronicle in a blog is people weren't talking about football in the way that I like to talk about football, which is humanizing. And you probably know this from fantasy. Sometimes people will get mad about certain things on fantasy teams and kind of talk in the dehumanizing way about players.
Yeah.
And you can do that. Like, I'm not going to police how people talk, but what I will say is we're all people.
Right.
That's not cool. Like, would you do it to that guy's face?
Right.
Well, then don't do it. Like, like for me, I'm not a coward. Like, I probably have said some things to people's faces that they did not like. I know for a fact that I have. And it wasn't ever my intention, like I never intended to. But like whether you intend to hurt somebody's feelings and whether you actually do is two separate questions. And then what's hard is when you're talking in a public way, you don't know who you offended unless they come to you directly and go, hey, you said these things and they're wrong. And I've had that happen a million times where I said something thinking that it was true. And I either talked to the principal about it, like the person I was talking to about, or I talked to somebody else and they're like, are you sure about that? Did you consider this? And I'm like, okay, thank you for more information. So like, I try really hard not to say things that are gossip because I don't like people gossiping about me. I try very hard to keep private things private because I believe in that point of view that if you have a problem with somebody, you talk to them. You don't like put their business on the street unless you had like a really, like you have no other choice, that you've tried every other avenue. And so, but this is everything. It's not just sports. Like, so, it's an adventure to know what's really helpful. But like, anyway, I did the blog stuff and then I started writing, and then in the blog era, it was kind of different because we could have the conversation aside. Now there's a whole bunch of different formats that people can do.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it was easier back then because there were so few ways to talk that the monoculture made it so that it was really easy to get a viewpoint out there and accepted and bought into and bring people together. Now it's a little hard. It's like you got your YouTube people and you have your Twitter people, and now there's Thread people and Instagram people. But ultimately, if it's within the fan context, we're all wanting the same thing. And within fantasy football, you have disagreements about the value of this, that, or the other thing. But in that discussion, if it's done in respectful ways, the people with the best information can win.
For sure. Wow. That was a lot to take in because we're so, not that it's like so heavy, but I was just thinking about how people do just run out there with their opinion.
But that's good. Like that's how everybody starts. Like that's how you learn. Everybody does have opinions. And until somebody says to you, hey, have you thought about this? Like, here's an example. And this is kind of a hard topic, but it's a beautiful topic at the same time. My mom passed away in January and on her own terms. It was hard. And the hardest thing now, because grief isn't linear, is this is my first season going through it without talking to my mom about football, which she was an all-time, like she was like, there's a lot of different people that are fun to talk sports with. She was fun. And one of the things that was cool when we were helping her with her things was we found a letter that she had written. Well, we didn't find that letter. We found a response from Hank Aaron, thanking her for kind words that she had written to him while he was doing the home run thing. And as you know, infamously, he got so many threats while he was trying to get the record that it made the process of getting the record very stressful in ways it should have never been.
Right.
And that's a hard story in our sports history, but we can learn from that, right? Well, yes, people did say terrible things, and it was beautiful to see that she had written him something, which I don't know what she wrote. Like she didn't, like this was a long time ago,
Sure.
when I was very little. And she had received this response, and then she had kept it in the envelope in a safe deposit box. And in any event, vibes are real.
Yeah.
And back then you had to get like a stamp, and you had to address Hank Aaron, I hate you, in Atlanta. And then you had to write something terrible, and then you had to mail it. Now we all have that 24/7, and it's not just to players, it's to individuals
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about sports. It's to the media members who are trying to get information. It's to people who maybe don't talk in a respectful way, but they don't realize that what they're saying is disrespectful, or it's
Right.
not clicking to them, or maybe it is clicking to them. Like, one of the things I learned when I was moderating is that some of the people that had the harshest tones, some of them were kids and just didn't know better, and then some of them had their own things going on, that maybe that's the way that they were taught to talk about it. But
Mhm.
one of the most important people to me early on was like saying, you have some really good points on things, but when you say it in kind of an overly personal way, that distracts from the thing that you were saying. And you don't need to say it that way. Actually, it's much more convincing to just say it straight up, but not in a dehumanizing way. And that's a really hard line to walk in a
Mhm.
way, because we all have different backgrounds. We all see things as disrespectful or respectful. We all have different touch points. And then in the modern world, it's really easy to conflate all criticism, that if somebody's saying something really terrible, if somebody says something similar but not the same, it all feels the same. It all feels
Mm.
the same when
True.
the information that you're getting is kind of distorted. And right now you can get information in an extremely distorted way, because there's so many people and bots, and people deal with that attention in different ways based on kind of how they've been taught and how they've been mentored.
You're so right. And also, when I manage my team at work during the day, I also talk to them the difference between text and how you interpret something versus when I'm delivering something by voice. So I'm always like, if you see this and it sounds really mean, it's probably not really mean. It's just to the point, or directing or sharing
Well,
information.
and part of that is cultural with text. Like, we don't see facial expressions.
Right.
People have differing like, even on social, there's differing things socially that some people find respectful, some don't. Like, I was told by a different media member who is younger than me, who said, "Oh, you text like my mom." I'm like, "What?" It's like, "Well, you text kind of dry." And I'm like, I have to say, as a lawyer, it pains me to put a whole bunch of exclamation points
Mhm.
on something, unless something like I'm losing my hat on something. So a lot of that can be just very cultural, but like, we're all
Mhm.
talking together all at once. And so, like, a lot of the things that you learn in sports or on the teams that you're talking about are, hey, don't take things personal. Well, don't take things personal is it's that's a hard road to drive, because what one person thinks is personal, which is their work performance. Like, if you're analyzing somebody's work performance and you're not their boss, and you may not have all the information, like their injury status,
Yeah.
or whatever, you don't know their whole life. It is hard to have people you don't know telling you about your business,
Yep.
and it's not quite fair, or it's leaving out information, or somebody said something about it and you're not in a good position to defend yourself. And that is the modern world.
The modern world. We'll take one more question here from the audience. Carrington Hobbs, she's bringing us back to talk about
Oh,
football.
this
Steph,
is the answer.
what do you think will be who do you think will be the most productive this season? Nico, Tank, or Diggs?
Yes. 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 Wait, I need to put these glasses on for this. What I'm going to tell you is going to blow your mind. This may be the season where it's the five-headed monster, as CJ Stroud had mentioned it, where if you are a skill position guy, expect the ball if you are open. So sometimes it's going to be the fullback, sometimes it's going to be the tight end. Sometimes it's going to be the wide receivers. Sometimes multiple, like you're going to have a bunch of wide receivers on the field. Sometimes you won't. Sometimes it will be the running back coming out of the backfield, as in Joe Mixon. He called it the five-headed monster. He did not identify which head is which maybe you don't like if you like the whole concept of number one wide receiver for your fantasy football team. But frankly, 2024, I don't care about your fantasy team other than I think that there's going to be a lot of productive guys. Look to the matchups. Like if a particular team has a problem covering running backs coming out of the backfield, or have problems with the tight end, or have problems with like the third wide receiver, any number of things. Or if you just go, hey, I'm desperate for a waiver, let me grab who's available. Maybe that week that will be that guy, because that's the nature of this offense. This offense, CJ Stroud is a ball delivery system. He wants the ball to go to the open guy. He doesn't care about your fantasy team. Now, I do.
I love it.
Not Nico. I mean, Nico, Tank, and Diggs have all crushed it. Like watching training camp, I'm telling you out there, watching training camp last season and going into this season has blown my mind, because the assumptions that I had about how do you get rookies to develop, and all of my assumptions are out the window. And part of that is just the leadership that DeMeco Ryans is a great coach and has grabbed a great staff that has put together very productive schemes. You have a GM in Nick Caserio who can add players as the season progresses. And as we're taping this, there's some kind of goo eyes with JJ Watt, which is, he technically has not signed the retirement papers. We don't know what this team's going to be. And their big point is, we'll see what the team is by the end of the year, because we're going to just put the best guys on the field and play ball. And this is why we watch football. Like, I want your fantasy team to do really well, but this team is why you watch football. I am inviting you to become a Texan fan. Like, even if you are a fan of another team first, let them be your AFC team, or let them be your favorite team in Texas. Because like, at least we're not Cowboy fans. Unless you are a Cowboy fan, there are people of both. This could be great. This could boom. Like, that's what I'm telling you. Like, I have seen good football. I have seen bad football my whole life. This is like my hat's going to blow off kind of football. I can't wait for the season to start. The defense, the offense, and don't forget the special teams. Like all of it all together. This could be great. So
this could be great. And you had to put on special glasses to deliver it, so we know it's even more important.
Yes. Oh, no, I'm going to put on a jacket now. We're going to go next level. We're going to put on the jacket, because Texans are whatever Texans wear. Like, there's not a special outfit to be a Texan. Like, if you're a Texan, whatever you're wearing is what Texans wear. So here we go.
Oh my.
This is what I wore in Canton.
Yes.
Football heaven. I want 2024 to be football heaven. Heaven. Come visit me at my tailgate in the Platinum Lot if you want to, if you need a place to go, or you can find me on all the usual places online. Sometimes I'm there.
That was amazing. Steph, thank you so much for joining us. We have been schooled. I would love it if you would announce the winner of our raffle. Josh, hop on in here and let's spin that wheel.
I like this Steph, that was amazing. That was so much
this
fun.
widget, and I love things that are going to a good cause. I've never been to a Galvanize event before, but I would love to go to one. Somebody needs this giveaway, and I don't have my reading glasses on. I have my rose-colored glasses.
Luckily, it pops up really big after it's announced.
This is a great little widget here. I've never seen it. I think it's fair.
Wheelofnames.com.
Nice. Okay.
Oh,
Jason Smith, congratulations. I hope you enjoy this jersey or give it to somebody else who would like it more than you.
Amazing.
For reference, this was the signed Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey.
Woo!
So congratulations, Jason. Once again, a reminder, we raised $675 this week off of the 2 raffles for a 3-week total so far of $2,095.
That's amazing. Sending
Love
more women to sports media boot camp at Galvanize, so they don't have to learn the hard way. They're learning
they
the
don't
smart
have to
way.
the hard knocks way.
Right?
I'm sure it's definitely still hard, but it's work smarter.
Much smarter. I
work
can't
harder.
tell, like I could write a whole book of the dumb things I have done over the years, just not knowing and wishing that I just at this point I just want to encourage everyone to just be their best at whatever they do.
That's the perfect way to end this interview. Again, thank you so much, Steph. Everybody be sure to follow Steph at Steph Stradley on the app formerly known as Twitter. And join her tailgating in the Platinum
Yes, no,
Lot.
seriously. The food in Houston is part of our recruitment. Like, you come to our tailgate once, you are now part of our tailgate, and there is no FOMO because like all the food at the tailgates is just great. Like all the lots, everything is great. I'm actually going to do a tour of all of the tailgates by foot on Saturday and see if I can actually do it this year. Last year, I stopped at the yellow lot because I was having too much fun.
I love it. Well, you know what, Josh? You can just boot us right out of this video and you handle the closing.
I can definitely do that.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
All right, real quick. Next week, we have Susie Schuster-Eisen will be interviewing with Kelly Singh. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern here on the Women of Fantasy Football as well as Club Fantasy YouTube channels. We will also be giving away 2 more signed jerseys. First, a Jalen Hurts signed Eagles jersey. And I think the new personal favorite that I really don't want to part with. It is a signed Jason Kelce, Kelly Green Eagles jersey. So be sure to head over to womenoffantasyfootball.com. Buy your raffle tickets today. They are $5. 100% of all ticket sales will go to our WOFF Galvanized Scholarship Fund. We would very much love to be able to cross that 3,000 border that we were able to hit last year. So once again, womenoffantasyfootball.com. Click on the graphics. It'll take you over to the raffle pages. And let's rock and roll. Appreciate Kelly. Appreciate Stephanie. Appreciate Stacy and Faith, who unfortunately could not be here. But thank you to everybody that continues to tune in, celebrate with us, and donate to the raffles and buy the raffle tickets. Everything that we do, it's all for the ladies here in the sports industry. We will see you guys next week.